Good morning, Game Masters. Welcome back to another episode of Good Morning Game Masters. I am here with John Haney. I'm the GM Philosopher. Unfortunately, Kelf is out sick today. Best wishes to Kelf. Hopefully that he gets better. But today we're talking about dragons, or more specifically, do Game Masters fear running dragons? This actual conversation was labeled as Dungeons and Wait, where are all the dragons? This was the title proposed by Kelf. Are dragons too powerful for most campaigns? Are they too complex to run well? Are we just saving them for the moment that never comes? What is the deal with dragons? William's in the house. Actually up this morning. Heck yeah. Austin Walker is up. The problem with dragons is threefold. Overpowered characters, the biggest. DMs lacking experience of running boss monsters. Lastly, the fact that they're in the title, not enough dragons in game. Okay, all right. I like it. Want to give a big shout out to our gold level supporters this morning, David and Craig. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and all that you do. And we got Alex listening on the drive home. Heck yeah. We're going to jump right into it. And after John and I discussed this for a while, we might actually open it up to some call-ins and see what you guys have to say about this. And also feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section. But John, what do you think? If we're going to jump right into it, this conversation about dragons, are they too powerful for most campaigns? And what other opening thoughts do you have on this?
Oh man, opening thoughts. I just think dragons are awesome. I mean, it's Dragon Week and we did the dragon contest over there in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, join the Discord. If you're watching this later, there should be a link somewhere. Be in the Discord. There's a lot of cool stuff. We just had a huge dragon contest, and this proves, I think, that it was one of the most frequented contests and widely varied. I think among the 12 dragons we had, see, a lot of our previous contests were about 9 or 10 entries. We got a few more with this one. Not only that, but there was massive variety. I don't think there were two dragons that were the same or even close. And people just have this amazing imagination about dragons. I think there's been a lot in throughout world history, world literature, even in religions and stuff, that dragons have been a part of the human imagination for so long that there is something visceral, something universal to the human experience almost about dragons. You look throughout human culture and everything, they're just everywhere. So my opening thoughts about dragons, they're awesome. They're incredible. You mentioned dragons. I see a dragon. I'm immediately interested. Um, and I'm totally here for it. And so you have a game where the title is Dungeons and Dragons, and or even the game that that most people tend to play or default to, and even people that don't play, strictly speaking, Dungeons and Dragons still refer to the hobby as Dungeons and Dragons. It's like Kleenex, Xerox, or Band-Aid. Everybody just uses that one. So it's Dungeons and Dragons, and yet the issue, and we talked about it in the contest, we talked about it during Dragon Week, and now we're bringing it up. Well, where are all the dragons? It's called Dungeons and Dragons. One of the reasons I think that Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim, was the most popular of Elder Scrolls 3, 4, and 5 was the fact that there were dragons. That that there's these dragons in it, because a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people argue that Morrowind and Oblivion were actually better games, but that Skyrim, because it had those dragons, it had that sort of the quintessential fantasy creature that you could talk to, that you could fight against, that you could do all these things. There's something about dragons. We need more of them in the hobby, I think. So, yeah, those are my initial thoughts at any rate.
Heck yeah. Also, I think Skyrim, one of the reasons it was more popular is because the graphics were better. But now
Yeah,
this
that too.
Oblivion remaster actually looks really,
Yeah,
really, really
really
awesome.
good.
Actually looks super good. I saw some playthrough video of it the other day, and I was like, is that Oblivion? Is that
Yeah,
Oblivion? It used to look so different. Still really,
yeah.
still really good game though. All right. So are dragons too powerful for most campaigns? Here's my
Yeah.
my introductory thought to this. As a general rule, so I love dragons. I actually kind of tend to agree with William on this. Limit their visibility in the world to increase the aura of respect, make them epic when they do show up. I tend to love to run dragons like as very, very highly intelligent creatures. Even like the young ones, the wormlings are intelligent like for their age is how I tend to run them. Um, and then if they're really young, like very little, like smaller than a wormling, like smaller than medium sized, I kind of tend to run them kind of like a feral beast, but then they start to gather intelligence and become very, very, very intelligent. um Garrick says, anyone else have a dragon die from poor tactics? I had a red that had not been tactically challenged in years. Strafing on the party, get hit with 2 lightning bolts, roll poorly, hit the ground. So I have had dragons get killed relatively easily sometimes. Um, but I actually don't think they're too powerful for most campaigns. In fact, if you look in the monster manual, I actually think most of the dragons are underpowered, to be super honest. Like especially the large versions, like which are the large ones are the adults, I believe.
Ancients, well, adults and ancients.
Yeah. So maybe I should grab my monster manual just to make sure I'm right about this.
I don't I don't own Fizzbands, which is horrible because I love dragons. But then there's even one level above that. I think the Great Worms. I don't know if somebody can confirm in the chat, but
Oh, okay.
the Great Worms are even bigger than that, or at least older and more powerful.
Yeah, I think it goes like I think it goes you've got a medium
Wormling,
size, yeah, like a
yeah,
wormling. Then there's like an adolescent,
yep,
which is
yeah.
usually I think the adolescent's usually
I think
uh,
they're large.
large. Yeah. Then
Yeah.
you have an adult, which I think is large, and then or
Or they
gargan or
huge,
huge,
and then gargantuan.
and then
Yeah.
there's a gargantuan version, the ancient ones.
Mhm.
So I think they tend to be usually kind of underpowered, especially up to the large versions. Like, for example, my party of like, okay, right now in the Barren Lands, that party would smoke a large dragon. I think of any species right now. I
Mhm.
really believe they would. Uh, and then the same is true in Dunes of Fate. Well, no, Dunes of Fate, they're a little lower level. You guys
Yeah,
are
we're level 3 right now.
oh, okay. A large dragon would actually probably be kind of dangerous, but I don't
Yeah,
think it would be like a party wipe situation, like a large red dragon.
yeah.
I generally tend to beef them up if I do throw them
Mhm.
in. I think the monster manual makes them too underpowered. Um,
Yeah,
they,
I would, yeah, yeah. I kind of agree that they look overpowered because it's a larger, more complex stat block. I think what a lot of people do with dragons, though, is the idea of that they tended to run dragons as the one creature that's in the fight. They almost never pair dragons with other minions and other a thing of kobolds or something, like or even smaller dragons. So you wind up with this, one monster with everybody wailing on the one monster, and that can be a big problem if you don't have the minions, if you don't have the layer actions, the legendary actions, and all those things. They get
yeah,
overwhelmed, and I think they get overwhelmed anyway. Like you're saying, there's this weird thing where levels like 1 through 3, even into level 4, you could get wiped by a dragon.
yeah,
But you start to get into the upper levels a little bit. There's a sweet spot, around like levels 5 through 8, but you start to get level 9, 10, 11, and player
yeah,
characters are just so powerful at that point. And even the adult and ancient dragons, you get one good tactic, one good spell, and some good, some good rolls, and you can even wipe the adult dragons at those
yeah.
levels.
Now, with that being said, I do think that okay, so you mentioned action economy, which is I think actually a
Mhm.
big part of it.
Oh, it's
Um,
huge.
Yeah, and I think that people do tend to run dragons alone, which
Hmm.
that would be the stereotypical, like it's like, oh, we all need to work together to fight this dragon. And you made a good point there. Actually, they do look powerful on paper, especially when you compare the dragon stat block to like a player character stat block. It's like, oh, this is so powerful compared to like a player. It's like, yeah, if it was a one-on-one fight, that would be very difficult. But
Yeah.
it's just when you get the action economy with the magic and all that, it makes it so that it's a little difficult for dragons to actually contend. With that being said, I love to so I don't usually use like small dragons as like a boss fight or even a large dragon. A large dragon is more like a mid-level boss, if anything, because they can be a really fun thing to interject to create some like actually some discovery. Because in my games, usually you don't just see dragons willy-nilly. So it's like seeing a dragon is kind of a special thing. And then also there's always the element of talking to the dragon because in my games, dragons are highly intelligent. So it's not
they're
just like
smart.
we're getting attacked by a feral monster. It's like, oh, no, we're getting attacked by a creature whose intelligence is probably higher than any of ours. It's probably like, got some plans of some kind. It's probably,
and that is part of the issue. Yeah, if you want to run something that's a little more feral, more creature-like, I'd say run a wyvern, run a manticore, run a chimera, run something else that's sort of vaguely draconic, but not necessarily a dragon. And I mean, like even at least in my homebrew world, even pseudo dragons are still. They're not quite humanoid intelligence, but they're still very smart for a creature. Wyvern, same thing. They're still very intelligent, at least for a creature. And so the idea of reasoning with the dragon, having those dragons. I recently ran a young dragon. It wasn't a wormling, but it was a young dragon against a level 5 party. My party is level 5. They actually just last night got level 6. But they were level 5 when they fought this dragon, and I ran it. It had minions. It had a couple of lieutenant creatures bolstering it, which is, I think, the way that the fights should go. Anything that is intelligent enough to know that it shouldn't run into a party of adventurers and try to take them all by themselves. And so it had a lieutenant spellcaster. It had a whole bunch of like little cannon fodder type minions, little stormtrooper type. You need something for the barbarian to whack. And then, but even so, that fight, there was a certain point where I was like, I need to actually think about this, because even at level 5, even with depleted resources, and even with all these minions, this dragon, the CR of which should be a big challenge right now, it's not stacking up. And 5e, whether you're playing 2014 or 2024, 5e characters are so powerful, even by the time they're level 5. Level 4, you hit that first ASI. Level 5, a lot of those other abilities come online. Your proficiency bonus goes up. And even your young dragons just aren't powerful enough anymore, and you need to start having those legendary actions, legendary resistances, layer actions. You have to think about minions if you want your dragons to be challenging, because anything that's intelligent enough is intelligent enough to lead troops, and anything that's that powerful is powerful enough to have your little stooges that run around. I love that comment right there. That why would an evil dragon fight fair? They wouldn't. They would ambush. They would be sneaky. And there are sneaky dragons. So look at the greens. Look at the whites. Even in the monster manual,
the black dragons hiding in the swamp.
Oh yeah, they chill. Yeah, black dragons actually remind me a lot of Leviathan in the Book of Job in the Bible. Like, it lives in the swamp. It breathes acid and all this stuff. Black dragons, I'm like, I wonder if they read Job right before they wrote the Black Dragon.
There's a lot of lore about that. Like they claim that the concept of the dragon maybe even came from ancient religious texts. And every culture has dragon myths.
Every culture has it. That's an interesting thing right there. Even from the non-D&D, non-gaming perspective, the idea that every culture has large, occasionally winged, occasionally fire-breathing reptilian creatures that are a plague to society. That's an interesting thing.
That is very interesting. Maybe we should talk about that here in just a little bit. But okay, are dragons too complex to run well? This is the next question.
Ooh.
I do think so. I think that a lot of DMs get overwhelmed by the concept of running a dragon, and I will admit even I find it a bit daunting sometimes because I really want to think through it. I don't just want to throw
Mm-hmm.
a dragon willy-nilly into the thing. It's like, why are they here? What are they doing? Because dragons always have schemes, I feel like. So I kind of feel like you have to think through their scheme before you can present them. Otherwise, you won't be able to present their motivation properly. I feel like a dragon is uh, one of the most dangerous things to just improvise
Mm-hmm.
because it can very quickly fall on his face. Because it's like, wait
Yeah.
a minute, this isn't, if it doesn't quite add up, like if a goblin leader doing a thing doesn't quite add up, it's like, I don't know if he's like, this is probably not the best idea what he's doing. Like, why would he do that? But that's like, okay, it's a goblin leader. But if it's a dragon doing it, they're like, why? Like, why is the dragon doing this? And if it doesn't add up, then it actually hurts immersion, I feel like. That's a
Mm-hmm.
danger with it.
And I feel like they should not be on random roll tables.
Yeah.
Running into bandits, running into a pack of wolves, running into a lot of those creatures makes sense on a random roll table. Having a dragon on your random roll table is not it narratively it doesn't make sense because dragons, even 5e dragons, but even throughout mythology and in other systems as well, dragons are incredibly long-lived creatures. They outlive elves, they outlive gods. Sometimes they outlive all of these other creatures. They're very good at long game. They're very good at waiting. They don't just wander the world. They're not out there aimlessly doing stuff. And so I think planning a dragon encounter is super important. And it's something that I would kind of advise as far as dragons being too complex is to think of the dragon in multiple phases. So you have your layer actions, which should usually go off on 20 initiative count, right? So every thing. So I wouldn't have that as part of the dragon stat block. I would almost separate out that layer action part and just have that as a different part of the stat block. Just be like, okay, so on initiative count 20, as long as the dragon is in its layer, which it should be narratively, it unless it has a really great reason to not be in its layer, you have that part of the stat block. And then you have the part of the stat block that's actually initiative count dragon. So you have your breath weapon, your claw or your rending attacks, your movement, all of those other things. So you have that, and you have that wherever the initiative count is. I would say have even a third part of the dragon stat block separated out. So it's almost like you're running three different creatures. And that will kind of ensure that you have the layer action part of the dragon, you have the action proper part of the dragon, and then you have the legendary actions, reactions, and all of those other parts of the dragon that will then help you to remember to do those things, and it will help you to kind of make sure that each one of those things is used strategically and impactfully, because once again we're dealing with highly intelligent creatures that need to be presented as highly intelligent. How are you going to stay one step ahead with this one creature? Well, the fact that it can do stuff on its turn and off its turn indicates a very strategic, practiced, multitasked creature that is, once again, so intelligent that when you play it out like that, also when you're using the layer actions, that's going to make the whole environment more immersive. This isn't just a random fight in the forest or in some ruins. This is something that uh, this is something that is in its layer. This is very specifically a dragon fight. This isn't just a very smart, very powerful creature. This is a dragon, and it really should feel that way. Um, that the 9% of the time, that's an unusual number there. That wondering out sometime if they're going on a quest to get special items, raiding another dragon slayer or something. Uh, I could allow that. I can see where dragons have their own motivations. My point would be that dragons leaving their lair wouldn't be random. I wouldn't. I'm not saying they never leave the lair, but it shouldn't be random. They're not just out there. Maybe wormlings, and on super rare occasion, a young dragon, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
would just be out and about. But adult and ancient great worms, they're not leaving if they don't have to. They're too smart for that, and it's definitely not random. So
All
it
right.
should be planned. It should be narrative. You should never run a dragon willy nilly.
I usually tend to think about like the younger the dragon, the more likely it is to be kind of out aggressively trying to either find a lair or expand its
Hmm.
territory. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
usually run it.
Hmm.
And by the time they become obviously like an ancient red dragon, or not red, an ancient dragon just in general, then I kind of think, well, they've come to a place where they've probably amassed a great deal of treasure. They're probably going to tend to be in their lair more often than not. They're probably there obsessing over their magic items that they've collected and their treasure, like
Hmm.
counting it ceaselessly. Maybe moss is starting to grow on their back, it's
Yeah,
until
a
they get
lot of
woken
times.
up by something. All
Right.
right. So another question here. Are we just saving dragons for a moment that never comes? And then there's some kind of sub questions here. Do
Hmm.
we mythologize dragons so much that we hesitate to use them at all? Should dragons be world shapers and recurring threats, not just one time bosses? What would a Dragonrich campaign actually look like? So basically, are we saving them for a moment that never comes, over mythologizing them? My answer to this is sometimes, but I would say that I don't save them for a moment that never comes. In my campaigns, there's almost always a dragon like appearing more than once in the campaign, almost once per quarter. I would say like every 5-ish levels or so. That's not
Hmm.
always true. Sometimes there are substitutes for that. Like sometimes there'll be a beholder that comes in, and that'll
Hmm.
be kind of like a big session arc thing. But like a dragon, I usually run at least twice in a campaign. And to be honest, in my past campaigns, dragons have pretty frequently been mid-level bosses. One of my most long-term epic level campaigns, there was a dragon who was a boss. Granted, it was like a dragon shape-shifting wizard who could time travel. So that was like, but the form this creature took to fight in and to rule
Yeah.
in was that of an ancient red dragon. So anyway, that
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I don't think I save them for a moment that never comes. I don't know if other GMs have that experience.
I
Other
think
people, what do
I
you
think
think?
some people do. I don't. I mean, I ran one at level 5 just now, and they fought draconic things before that.
Mhm.
Um Previous campaign, or it was a mini campaign really. I ran a couple different dragon fights in that one, and that wasn't even a long campaign. That was only probably a dozen sessions or so. And I ran dragons a few times. I ran. Oh, this was fun. I ran red wormlings, but it was a group of them, and they were shadow dragons. So that's a really fun thing. If you ever want to put a fun twist on a dragon stat block, look at what the shadow dragons do to a stat block. And it was really interesting because one of my characters is a tiny bit of a metagamer, and he was looking at the fact that their skin was black when he was attacking them, and going with all the attacks that black dragons should be vulnerable to, and they weren't working. And I was like, yeah, that's because they're red dragons, but they're shadow dragons. And it was like, oh no. He asked me after the session. I was like, why wasn't it working? Were you just being difficult? And I was like, no, there was a stat block reason for that. Yeah, I love running dragons. I absolutely love running dragons. It's like um it's the mentality. I learned this man, the one of the greatest Christmas movies of my childhood, Home Alone, when he talks to the guy at the very end, and he's talking about his roller skates that he got, and he never used them. He wore them once or twice in his bedroom, but he never wore them outside. And by the time he was ready to try wearing them outside, he had outgrown them. And I feel like people do that with dragons. You have wormlings, young, adult, ancient. If you buy fizz bands or homebrew, you have even more powerful than that. You get up to the deity levels. You have Tiamat and Bahamut. You have these awesome stat blocks all along the way, and you have other draconic creatures too. You have your wyverns, you have your pseudo dragons, you have fairy dragons. You buy more stuff, and you get gem dragons. You have your metallics, your chromatics, so you can homebrew stuff to no end. We just proved it over on the Discord. You can make this stuff go ahead and run them. It's okay. It's like use the fine china. Like if you only use it once a year, like come on, like the rest of your life isn't that important. No, go ahead and use them. Run them well. I would always advocate run them well, run them properly, do your research, plan the encounter.
Oh
These
yeah.
are smart. They're probably one step ahead of the party. They're good at playing the long game. They're observant. They're intelligent, but go ahead and run them. Should they be world shapers? I think so. I think a lot of the things that go on in the world, at least in my homebrew world, a lot of the things that go on in the world are being shaped by dragons, whether people realize they're dragons or not. Most dragons can polymorph. Um, at least in
Yeah.
my world, they can.
Which that adds a whole nother dimension to it, actually.
They're the movers and shapers because they're the longest lived, but because of that, they're not necessarily um, as ambitious as humans per se. So they're not looking to make things happen immediately, but they're in it for, to them, 1,000 years is, I can wait for that, oh well. And the men die out, the dwarves die out, the elves die out, they're still there, but they're seeing the fruits of their labor. They're really good at long game stuff. I think they are working in the world. They're just doing it at a time frame that we're not familiar with, or that the PCs aren't familiar with. We, the GMs, are familiar. So yeah, I think they are the world shapers. I don't feel like I save them for a special moment. I feel like if a dragon makes narrative sense, it's going to come in. I like that third question. What would a dragon-rich campaign actually look like? I think what we've both described here is what a dragon-rich campaign looks like. They should be rare because they're large. They have these massive hordes. They're rare creatures, but they are there. They're present. They're polymorphed. They're hiding. They're doing all these things. I think what a lot of people think a Dragonrich campaign should look like is like a How to Train Your Dragon type world where there's just like everybody has pet dragons. They're just flying around. They're all over the place. There's good dragons. There's evil dragons. There's tiny little dragons. There's great big dragons, and they're just everywhere. I don't think it should be that, because that world building presents some logistical issues. But I think a Dragon-rich campaign is one where the GM is simply considering the fact that there are creatures who are bigger, smarter, stronger, more magically involved, and much more long-lived than any humanoid creature, including elves.
Yeah.
That are these things. So I say don't save them, use them. And that would be a Dragonrich campaign. Just be aware of the fact that there are dragons in your world and think, what would they be doing right now?
Yeah. All right. We've got a couple call-ins waiting. The format we're going to use for this morning's call-in show, going to bring a person in one at a time. Ask your question, state your idea, share your story, whatever it is. We'll talk for a little bit, and then we're gonna kick you out to make room for the next one. So only one caller at a time. But we already have two callers on the line. Everyone else, that call-in link is pinned at the top of the comment thread. Go ahead and join it. Adventure Manager is going to join us first. How's it going, Adventure Manager?
Doing good. Had my coffee.
Heck yeah.
Like I said, with dragons, 9% chance of encountering them. That's pretty rare, I'd say. Just random D100. But basically, make them super intelligent. They basically gave fire and, taught humans early on, or something, just out on a whim or something, gave you fire, gave you language and magic. Here you go, plug and play. That's fun.
Heck yeah. When you run intelligent dragons, do you find it like, I think some players get overwhelmed at the idea, I have to make this dragon seem maybe more intelligent than I am. Like, I feel like that's what I have to do. Like, I want to run this dragon so intelligent, like he has a higher intelligence than me. How can I make that happen? And so it's like, I have little tricks to try to do that. Do you run into that? Adventure Man?
Yeah, I think we all do. It's like, how do you betray, this 500-year-old being or whatever? He's going to be, that's 5 times my lifetime. I'm never going to live that long. If I was 500 years old, yeah, sure, betraying them would be easy. But, or if we had somebody to reference to, we don't.
Yeah.
So So what do you think is the most important element of this conversation? Do game masters fear running dragons in D&D? What is your big 2 cents on the matter?
Like I said before, it's just they're a boss level monster. It's going to be difficult for any new DM. So yeah, high level experience required. Like I said, just don't do it.
Yeah, I would say, and agreeing with the idea that 9% is rare. If they do show up on your random roll table, if they do have a thing that does require an experienced game master, I would very much agree, because you're going to have to think about, okay, well, why is this dragon out and about?
I accounted for that, actually. I added
Yeah.
another little sub roll to that. Basically, I think it's D4, I think, or something for like their age. So, okay, is it a baby? Is it ancient? Why is it flying around? And
Yeah.
not just explicitly saying, oh, yeah, baby dragon because you rolled it. No, that's way too specific.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea, especially with intelligent creatures or even a roving bandit group. But highly intelligent creatures like a dragon, having that extra roll table, that like supplement. It's like, okay, so you rolled a dragon. Why is it out? Roll again. How old is it? Roll again. Having those, I think it's a really good idea to cut down on the necessary improv per se, but still being able to run that dragon in a way that is realistic, so it doesn't seem like, this dragon is just wandering aimlessly through the world. Because I don't think they would be doing that personally.
Yep, the vagueness in the roll tables really does help. So,
all right, heck yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you, Adventure Manager, for jumping in. We're gonna cut the line and go to William now.
I gotta go get my coffee done too, so it needs an exit.
I wish you could ship me a cup. I haven't had a coffee yet this morning. All right, we've got William on the line. How's it going, William?
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good. All right, give us your 2 cents on the matter about this business of dragons. Do game masters fear running them? Are they underrepresented? What do you think?
Actually, my experience have been the reverse. A lot of GMs, at least around my area, they would run it quite a bit, and I think, like I posted first, for me, I think that if you use them too often, they lose that idea of that rare and mysteriousness about them. Mm-hmm. So I do run them in my campaign, and my campaigns usually run into dragons just about every time I have a campaign. But I make sure to keep that mysteriousness and that feel of age to them, that they've been around for a while. And depending on where they meet them, I hardly ever use them where they're going to be in a lair. But I do think that, there is a sense that you have to have some sort of experience running them. The DMs that run them over here, we might be able to just go in there and slaughter them if they don't play them right. So I think there is a link there between being able to run the dragon and having the experience, and then having a new DM and they play a dragon because it's awesome, and then it just ends up getting killed, especially if you're level 7 to 8 or so.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, one thing that I usually do with dragons is so I want to make it to where people are really careful, or maybe they should be careful in how they deal with the dragon. So like, one thing that I've always done in my games is anytime one of the party members says something to the dragon, they have to roll like a persuasion check, just to not like unwittingly basically make the dragon angry. Like, what if the dragon interprets what they said as being an attack, even if it wasn't? What if they interpret it as being like rude, even if it wasn't? Like, it's because it's really all about this dragon's in like particular, like the way that they're hearing things. What if this dragon like thinks everyone is passive aggressive when they're not? And then that's problematic, right? Because it's interesting. So I a lot of times will do that. I'll have, every time a player says, it's not even just like, oh, you're trying to persuade it. It's like literally when you say your thing, roll persuasion check. That's just to make it so that your character has managed to say the thing without sounding like without sounding in some manner that will make the dragon angry. And that's just the baseline. Then it's just the go.
Yeah.
I do like to control it. Like I have my pro game that we did on Friday, my actual one where I go and sit down at the table with them. And the emotions were running high on that one just because the other players are new. But I have one player who knows, and he tries his best not to meta game. He was getting mad because
they try.
He was like, "Why are you talking about me?" Because the dragon is a black gargantuan great worm dragon. It's one of my main dragons in my world of Solaire, and they just happen. Well, I have them down there in the Underdark, and the group ran into him, and they were trying to trick him, and so the new player. They gave him this deck of cards that knows about ancient history and magic, and the dragon was being, I guess, in a way, trying to make a deal, and he just took the deck of cards. And he's a paranoid dragon. This black dragon is paranoid, and right off the bat, they started noticing this. And the one who knows about D&D, he was like, "Oh God, it's a paranoid," and everybody was already felled the fear aura, except for I think maybe 2 people. So the new players were like, "Oh, why did you give him the cards? You know, knowing what they do." And all of a sudden, is like everybody was like, "Oh no, we just told him that it doesn't do that," because they already knew it was paranoid. And the dragon like grabbed this gnome, was about to eat him, and I said, "Okay, man, I rolled a percentage. That's the only time I would roll dice, but personality-wise, I was kind of controlling it all." And I said, "Well, we'll see if you're gonna get eaten or not this time around." Usually I wouldn't do the dice roll just because, but I wanted them to see and feel that fear of the dragon. And so, I tried to place the fear and made him know that, this was the end for you. This dragon, you mess with him, it's going to pretty much like either gobble you up or spit some acid on you. And that's what he did. It actually spit acid, and luckily some of the players survived, but then they knew, okay, we better be careful.
When you say spit acid, do you mean use this breath weapon?
Yeah,
that's a pretty big deal.
Pretty
big deal. Yeah, that size of a dragon.
Especially
with dragons, I usually go. But with dragons, I usually go all the way with them because I want people to know what a dragon is about and have that fear as players in the player level and in the player character level. But sorry about that, John.
No, that's all right. And no, you said something at the very beginning that was really interesting about how a lot of DMs that almost run dragons too often, to the point where they are losing that sort of special interest. And I would say that try to remember. For any DM that is almost running into that, I would counsel DMs that are too excited to run dragons and turn their world into the How to Train Your Dragons world, where they're just all over the place. I would counsel them, try to remember how long these things live. They don't sense urgency the same way we do, because they know they have a millennia long lifespan. They are going to live for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They're going to have time to deal with things. They don't sense urgency like we do. And I think people that are too eager to run dragons are running them the same way that we would run a human or even a dwarf or an elf NPC, to the point where they're like, we need to get things done relatively quickly. They don't do that. They have time. They are practically immortal in a lot of worlds. I guess it depends on the homebrew world whether they're truly immortal or they just live for 10,000 years. Even so, 10,000 years, that's 10 times longer than an elf. So try to, instead of we need our dragons to be out there doing stuff, it's like, no, dragons don't do urgency. Dragons don't do immediacy. They're very patient.
Yeah, and the way that I run them, they're fully ingrained into my world and its history and lore.
That's awesome.
But they're old that maybe only the like the ancient evil. Like I have the lich, my lich person would know about them, and then some of the elves would be the only other ones that would know lore about dragons. And they people know that there are dragons out there, but I made them where lately they been popping up because of what's currently happening, but most people haven't never seen a dragon before, and
Right.
the first time to see a dragon is completely epic. And I tried to enforce that in my first campaigns when I started up again. And the only other ones that I would say is like vampires, like powerful undead are the only ones that are similar as dragons, but undead are more akin and linked to the world of mortals than dragons are. So that's
Yeah.
why they're seen more compared to ancient dragons or dragons in general.
Yeah.
So, but I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even the 5e stat block, wormlings, they're a wormling, which we think of it as a baby, right? It's a baby dragon, but that wormling phase is up to, is it like 10 or 15, 20 years?
Yeah.
If you think about it, like if they're a baby at 20 years old, and then they're a young dragon up to like 100 or 150. And so I'm sitting here thinking, as I was preparing my encounter with this young dragon, this dragon, which I think of in my mind as, a teenager type dragon, it's an adolescent dragon, is still the oldest being present.
Yeah.
And so the way dragons think, that's man. There was a comment a little bit earlier about dragons doing stuff on a whim if they're evil. I forget what it was, but dragons would do stuff on a whim if they're evil. I agree with you. Yeah, there you go. Do more stuff, or even just cause if they're evil. And I agree. I would still say they're playing the long game. For them, they wouldn't be like the kid that burns ants with a magnifying glass. That they might be, but that would be really, really rare.
They might be.
But even so, they're not looking to start a witch hunt on dragons. They know they're not truly immortal. They know they're powerful, but they're not truly immortal. They would be smarter than that. They would do stuff that would be evil and conniving and not necessarily part of their I want to rule the world agenda, but just to be a jerk. But they would still do it on that long game scale.
I think all of them would do it on a long game scale, but like going back to the idea of the black dragon as a paranoid dragon, and it did a couple of things on the whim just because that's going more into personality, but he has a lot of stake into the world.
Yeah,
he knows that these 5 adventurers are in the Underdark by themselves, no one around. He could play on the whim. Outside in the real world, he'd probably be a little bit more careful.
Yeah,
that's in my homebrew world of Solar. He knows that there's like powerful people out there that, even though they're a dragon, they know to play the long game because they understand the power of mortals out there, and they could come after and do that witch hunt for dragons. So
I love that comment from Garrick. They would do stuff, but it might appear so because of their longer plans, to where if they are doing stuff because of their longer plans, it might appear random. But they know that, hey, if I torch this town now, in 15 years, this land is going to be fertile again, but the people will be gone, and so that it will seem random. It's really not. Or it might seem like, well, this area of the world, this entire region is plagued by dragons. Well, it's because they're playing the long game. How come they never attack anywhere else? Aren't they sick of attacking that one place? Like, no, they have a plan. Do the PCs know what that is? Definitely not. Does the GM even know what that is? Maybe not.
Not. Yeah,
like, it's okay.
Trying to get into the head of an ancient creature.
Yeah, sometimes it's a challenge. I think one of the scariest things is when a dragon decides they're going to make big moves, like in the world, right? Like I've one time had a situation where a dragon shapeshifted into a human, and then they joined like the government, like they became like a senator, and that was like very scary because it's like they're kind of playing this role as just being this like person, you know, in the government, but actually they're high key, like, I mean,
Yeah.
this powerful dragon, almost just playing games with the people.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a question. What do y'all think about this? Because so far, the only thing that I see from a lot of DMs, and I get it because, you know, everybody uses the same thing. We're not like recreating the wheel here, but usually is, let's say, was Takesis taking over and becoming a god, or taking over and becoming rulers of the world. As far as dragons, you know, with new DMs, they probably don't think about this stuff, but as older DMs and more, or not older, but more wiser DMs in the game, I guess, what do you guys think? Like, let's say with we usually know about red dragons, but let's go with a green dragon, ancient green dragon. Aside from saying I'm going to rule the world or become a god or whatever, what would be a scheme, and what is the reason they would be doing things in the world and make themselves shown to the mortals is another thing. It's like, why is this green dragon all of a sudden awakened and all of a sudden doing these things? As DMs, what would y'all have as a reason?
So this is something that I think always happens when dragons become ancient. in my world, this was true when I was running Greyhawk, and this is also true in my homebrew setting of Regenesis. Like, by the time a dragon becomes ancient, they reach a point. So there's this mechanism in my world called the path of gods, basically, where when beings become powerful enough, they become aware of the fact that they could ascend or attempt to ascend to a godlike status. Some beings choose to try to do it. Some choose they don't want that. And then some beings try to circumvent it and try to become a god basically outside of the established order of nature. So if an ancient dragon, you know, if they reach the age, inevitably they're going to become aware of this. So it's like, what are they going to do with this information? A lot of the good or benevolent dragons will actually work together. Like they will be almost in a relationship where they have spoken to most of the gods at one point or another, and they will decide, you know, ascending that path, that's not really what I want to do. I'm going to kind of back away from the world, and I'm going to become more isolated, and I'm going to wait until the world needs me, and I'm kind of just going to do things to occupy myself, mostly sleep a lot in the interim, almost like I'll come back when the world needs me, but I'm going to go away because I've grown so powerful that I really thrown off the balance. Evil dragons think of this differently, and this is how I think a green dragon would be. A green dragon would probably look at that opportunity to possibly try to become its own god, and it might try to do it. I think the one thing that would keep it from doing it, though, in a green dragon's case, green dragons are very cunning, very treacherous. I think that they might be afraid that the gods will not play ball with them. Like, I think they'll be afraid of going into a situation where the gods have more control over them, which once they start to go up that pathway, the hierarchy of the gods is very strict, and the gods don't let you really step out of line very much, because there's like laws amongst the gods in my world state anyway that keep like the world in order, and the gods get really mad if things violate that law. So a green dragon, that would be the reason it doesn't ascend. But so then it stays in the world. So what does it do in the world? Well, it still has to behave itself because it's on the big radar. It's like on, you know, it's kind of like the government's most wanted list or the most watched list. Like we're not coming after you right now, but we're really keeping an eye on you. You do one thing that's too far out of line, and you're going to have paladins coming after you like nobody's business kind of thing. So that's how I kind of run it in my games. It's almost like, you know, an adult dragon, they can get away with a lot more because there aren't these powerful eyes on them. But when they get to the point where they're an ancient dragon, and in my world, usually there's only one version of each dragon ancient at a time. So there'll only be one ancient green dragon in the world usually. So like, but that dragon will have to kind of behave itself, or at least it has to act within certain parameters. Otherwise, because it doesn't care about the mortals. It's not really that afraid of them. It's afraid of what's going to come from above if it starts throwing off the balance of the world, basically.
Mm-hmm. The question there, the way you posed it, I feel personally attacked that you read my campaign notes. So other things that would motivate a dragon other than world domination or ascending to godhood. Honestly, like what else would motivate any sort of creature? And I think power, which could kind of be a world domination type thing, but sometimes certain dragons might be content on a smaller scale to simply rule over one kingdom instead of like trying to control the whole world. They're like, well, what if I just have this one pocket of the world where instead of kind of trying to control everybody and everything, what if I have just this one region, but I'm really in control of just this one region? And so they, in their aged wisdom, have, almost assented to a lesser version of that dominion or even godhood. They have this little kingdom of kobolds that might do that. I would also say two more possibilities. That they would be attempting some sort of what they would perceive as order and justice. Whether that's true order and justice, I think of, I don't know if you guys saw the movie Black Panther with the other Black Panther guy, Killmonger, who he wants justice. He's going about it the wrong way, but what he perceives as injustice in the world, he wants to go out and make it right. So maybe these dragons are thinking, well, dragons and dragonkind, so your dragonborns, your kobolds, wyverns, pseudo dragons, they're all being discriminated against, and they're all being portrayed as villains and horrible, and we're out to set those wrongs right. So I would take inspiration from that Killmonger character and kind of say, well, okay, maybe he perceives something that is a real problem, but he's going about solving it in all the wrong ways. And the third one is luxury. What would most people do with tons and tons and tons of money? Would they go out to correct the world's injustices? No, they would buy a plantation in Central America and kick up their feet for the rest of their lives. And I think that would be something that would motivate a dragon very highly as well. Is, I want to find a situation where I can just be relaxed and have people feed me and all of this stuff for the rest of my unrealistically long life. So I would say, like, if not world domination and godhood, maybe a smaller version of that, or setting out to make the world conform to what they think the world should look like, or plain and simple hedonism. They want luxury. They want to be comfortable. They want to be happy, just like any other mortal would. Whether that mortality is 100 years or 100,000 years, they want the same thing that any other mortal would. So,
I think, because I have a few things that I do, because I have a lot of dragons in my world that are ancient. Mm-hmm. I have the same ideas that you just mentioned as far as and another thing, and the only reason I mentioned this one is because dragons live as long as I write novels for vampires, and vampires they have that exact same idea, as they've been around for so long. They get bored and they have this despair about them that they start just doing things in the world just because they're bored and they can, and they have that power to do so. And so that's one thing. Another thing is because dragons are they can be petty to each other, is maybe they have a large scheme, like people say in our world. People are playing chess somewhere out there, the Illuminati or something. But they have secret war that's going on because of punishment or revenge that they want to do upon each other. So, yeah. Or maybe even for love or some sort of obsession. So it's just ideas. I always ask because I know the most common trope is, and and for most people that play ancient creatures of great powers, usually either two things: to rule or to become gods, an ascension of gods.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I just thought of another one. I have a couple dragons in my world. Actually, I don't know why I thought of it earlier. I have a couple dragons in my world who are essentially monks. They're they live on a mountaintop. They literally live on a mountaintop and counsel people in the ways of the gods. So I think dedication to the gods is another motivation for a dragon.
William, I'm gonna bounce you out quick so we can bring Cayman in. We have one more caller coming in. William, thank you so much for
Sounds
jumping
good.
in, sharing great conversation, great ideas as always. I kind of hope that we don't encounter a dragon too soon in Solaire. Kind of Grom would hope so. He's having enough trouble with these zombies and zombie mist or whatever it is.
Stephen King mist. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Sounds good. Everybody have a good morning.
You too. Have a good one.
So, yeah.
Cayman, how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can hear you great. All right, what's your 2 cents on this topic? Do Game Masters fear running dragons in D&D? What's going on?
I think that there's a few things. I think that Game Masters do fear them, but it's specifically what you were talking about earlier, where you're that young dragon, because you want to see it early in the game where it's still exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But they are, gosh, I remember. I think it was Sunless Citadel. There's a little dragon in there somewhere. He's like a wormling, and he can just accidentally kill the whole party. That kind of thing happens all the time. But I think the goal should be to kind of make them comic book villains. Like, we've come up with a lot of different strategies to, like, things they might be doing in the world, and that's great. The more you know about your world, the easier it's going to be to come up with those things.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also just, like, because they're so mysterious and weird, just make them monologuing Doctor Doom type villains. They're not worried about some level 3 adventurers with their iron swords. What are you going to do to me with an iron sword? I'll fly. And so they can absolutely take that time to wheel and deal and monologue and be the most outspoken villains that they can be, which hopefully will let your players get the upper hand on them, right? It's the overconfidence that lets them do that. I think that the advice I'd have for somebody who's putting a dragon in front of their players at a very early stage is, sometimes people die. That's going to happen. But be prepared, because your players can handle way more than you think they can. Sometimes a party of level 3s will kill a young dragon, and you'll be like, how?
Oh, yeah. A lot of times player characters are more powerful as a group than they get credit for until you see them fight as a group.
Also, we're using Ds. That's why. That's why level 3s beat dragons sometimes. You know.
All right.
Your dice and theirs. Good thoughts.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, we're coming up on the hour. Cayman, I wish we had a little more time to talk, but we're coming up on the hour. Thank you so much for joining, for sharing your thoughts, sharing your ideas. Are you running a game right now?
I'm on hiatus from the game. The game that I was running did have a couple of dragons in it. One of them attacked a prince in their dreams, and then the players rescued him, and now they're going to his wedding.
What level did your players get to?
Right now, they're about level 12.
Nice. Are you going to go all the way to 20?
The plan's there. They've got the next stage of the adventure is a heist in hell.
Oh, going to the 9 hells. Yes.
All right.
I love it. All right. One more question. How do they plan to get there?
the crystal staircase or something kind of like it. It's my own world, but that's basically the idea. They're
Nice.
gonna walk to the crystal staircase and adventure into the nine hells from there.
Heck yeah, I like it. All right, awesome. Well, Cayman, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you call in again on another episode.
Yeah, it was interesting the first time I've seen it.
Heck yeah, heck yeah.
Have a good
All right,
one.
have a good one. Have a good one. All right, John. We're coming up on 7 o'clock here. Time to closing thoughts. What do you think? What are your closing thoughts here?
Dragons are awesome. Closing thoughts would be basically this: use them more, but use them mindfully. Be aware of how they work. Be aware of their age. Be aware of their intelligence and their power. For anyone who is working on running them in a way and forgetting things, the legendary actions that say split the stat block up a little bit to help you run each individual part of it a little bit better and make them actually seem more intelligent. Somebody had said, how do you run a creature that's smarter than you are? Mm-hmm. Split it up into different parts, run each part individually. That way you're kind of cloning your mind and tripling your powers. So yeah, run them more, but run them mindfully, run them narratively. Dragons are long-lived and intelligent and strategic, so they should be the movers and shakers. They should be present, even if they're kind of off screen most of the time. They should still be a consideration if you're running some sort of high fantasy adventure. So yeah, those are my final thoughts.
Heck yeah, very good
more.
Thoughts. Very good thoughts. My final thought would be this: if there was ever, I love to improvise, and I think improvising is the spice of life with D&D. But if there's one thing I'm gonna really prepare for, it'll be a dragon. I want to read through the stat block. I want to understand all its abilities. I want to give myself 20 minutes, 30 minutes to sit outside and think about what this dragon is trying to do. What is their motivation? What is their goal? I think that coming to terms with that will really help you to role play a dragon in a way that is more prolific. And I think that if there's ever a creature to really think through what they're doing and why they're doing it, and also to really understand their stat block, it would be a dragon for sure. I guess I treat them with a sort of reverence in D&D. They're kind of the ultimate creature. Beholders are very close for me. I love beholders, but a dragon is just they have a special place in my heart in the game for sure. All right, very good. Well, John, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for everyone who was in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's watching. Coming back for another episode of Good Morning Game Masters. Best wishes to Kelf. I hope he gets better. Hope he feels better. But we'll be back next Saturday morning with the next episode. We hope you all will join us then.